Yo, 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 what's happening, world? Welcome back to another episode of the Damn YouTube Sports Talk. It's your boy Ralph Sneaks. Back at you with another one, another episode, man. I think it's episode 28 if I'm not mistaken. But I'm back with another one. Hopefully everybody had a safe, productive weekend. You know what I mean? Um, Hopefully nobody really had no issues or nothing like that. Just hope everybody had a safe, productive weekend. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. But we back with another one. Damn You Two Sports Talk Show. This your boy Ralph Sneaks. If you ain't done so, make sure you head over the IG damn_YouTube_sports talk. I follow back. Hit the link in the bio to subscribe on YouTube. Damn You Two Sports Talk on YouTube. Head over to X, Damn You Two Sports Talk. Follow over there. And when you're on YouTube, follow, hit the notification bell so you can get notified when new content releases. But we're gonna jump right into it, man. We're gonna get into it. Week 8 NFL recap. We're just gonna recap NFL action week 8, even though we still got Monday Night Football. But we're just gonna preview what took place yesterday. As we all know it, crazy game in DC, the Commanders and the Bears, in which the Commanders came back, on a last-second Hail Mary. If you don't know, that's what happened. The Bears drove the field, took the lead, and then the Commanders came back and ultimately won it on a game-winning Hail Mary. But one thing that stood out, and I didn't see this until I got on social media. I actually had walked away. I was watching the game, and right when Jay Daniels released the ball, I had just stepped back into the room. I had walked away for a second, came back, and once I got back, Jay Daniels was actually releasing the ball on the Hail Mary play. And something about it, I said, damn, man, what if he catch this shit? I said that to myself. Because what made me say that is like the type of season that the Washington Commanders is having. This will just be, the way things are going for the Commanders right now, going for the people up there in DC, the hype around the city about the Washington Commanders, Dan Quinn, his first year coaching over there, the team under new ownership. You got a rookie quarterback. You now sitting at 6-2 at the top of the division. It's just something about that type of break just seems to happen to that type of team. You know what I'm saying? I just had some feeling. I was like, damn, what if he catch this? I didn't think that he would, but I was like, what if? And I was only thinking what if because of the type of season that they're having with Jay Daniels. Jay Daniels probably wasn't even supposed to play because of the rib injury he suffered last week in the win over Carolina. But he ended up playing. But what I'm getting at is, what I was about to get at is, I didn't see it on social media until early this morning. I mean, it might have been late last night, early this morning. That the Chicago Bears DB, Tariq Stevenson, I think this is his name, was taunting the crowd before the actual play happened. And he made his way into the play. Once the receivers and stuff started coming downfield, he turned around and realized the play had started. The receivers were headed downfield. He sprinted over there to get into the play. And it was his hand that tipped the ball back into the Commander's receiver hand, who actually caught the game-winning Hail Mary touchdown. See, that's when showboating and showing your ass go wrong. Now, if I'm the Chicago Bears, see, this is the type of stuff that, to me, deserves a benching. Get your ass over there on the bench, and you're sitting down. Because it was a tight game all the way. It wasn't a high-scoring game. It was a tight game pretty much the whole way. And I actually didn't think of the Washington Commanders defense being good at all. Looking at last week, they played the Panthers. That ain't really saying much of nothing. But then you come back this week and play a much better team in the Chicago Bears than you beat last week in the Carolina Panthers. And your defense this week was just as good, if not better, than it was last week. So I think the Washington Commanders is a team defensively that's getting better as the season goes. You got a defensive-minded head coach in Dan Quinn. You didn't start the season so hot on defense, but now as the season goes, you're starting to get a little better each week. And if you Tyrique Stevenson, the Chicago Bears had fought to get in that, to come back and take the lead in that game. And for it to come down to a Hail Mary, a play in which your ass wasn't even paying attention to, you got back into play. But all that taunting the fans and doing all this other kind of shit you was out there doing, if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm sending a message and I'm benching his ass. Point blank, period. Now, like I said, you did get back into play and you did get a hand on the ball, but you didn't back the ball down. But had you not been so involved in trying to taunt the fans and the crowd up there in D.C. and had your ass already in position, maybe you would have had a better chance at batting the ball down to the ground, which then would have led you to come out of there with a win. Because the field goal did no good for the Commanders. They had to score. So for them to get a Hail Mary off of your tip pass, your tip ball, and your ass just seconds before was taunting the crowd, taunting the fans up there in D.C., and you get back into play, and it's your tip ball that goes into the receiver's hand, that's the game-winning touchdown. See, that's the kind of shit, that's the kind of stuff I'm putting on film, and I'm showing the team that we ain't gonna be doing. We fought hard to get back into this game and take the lead late. And we lose a game on some bullshit like that. Now, the only reason that I'm benching him is because it's still plenty, it's still plenty of football left to play. Now, if that had been a game that put us out of playoff contention, if that had been a game that just eliminated us from playoff contention altogether, I would have cut his ass. But since we still got a lot of football left to go, that one loss is not going to eliminate the Chicago Bears from the playoffs. Now, and we're not going to say completely eliminate the Chicago Bears from the playoffs, because it could come down to the end where you miss the playoffs by one game, and then you look back at that one game and look at it and say, damn, all you had to do is back the ball down and have your ass paying attention and focusing the game on the last play, and that we would have came out of DC with a win, and that would have been the one game that we missed the playoffs by. That would have been the one game that would have got us in. So I ain't gonna completely say that one. You don't know yet. It could have cost them. It couldn't have cost them. But we still got a lot of football left to play. And if it come down to the end of the season where the Chicago Bears missed the playoffs by one game, we're gonna look back at this one game in which Tyrique Stevenson was half-assing, taunting the fans in the crowd, and he finally get his ass back into the play, and it's his tip ball that gets into the wide receiver's hands. That's the game-winning touchdown. That's the one game we're going to look back and say, if the Chicago Bears missed the playoffs by one game, we're going to look back at that one game and be like, yeah, that was it. Then you got to think about the division the Chicago Bears in the NFC North. It's probably one of the toughest divisions right now in football, with the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Green Bay Packers. So you can't afford to drop games like that if you're the Chicago Bears. Now, like I said, we still got football left. We still got half a season to go. So, we can't say right now. But when it comes down time to it, and if it goes down to the final week of the season, and the Chicago Bears miss the playoffs by one game, we're gonna look back at this one game as the reason why the Chicago Bears missed the playoffs. Let this be a lesson to every, not just the other teammates in Chicago on the Bears roster. Let this be a lesson to every damn body. Keep your head in the game. The game ain't over. It ain't over till the clock strikes 0. And the whistle is, but it ain't over. But he was out there taunting the fans as if the game was already over. You never know. We've seen plays like this before where where teams have successfully executed a Hail Mary. So it's not an impossible play that can't happen. It won't happen. It can happen. And like I said, if the Chicago Bears miss the playoffs by one game, we're going to look back at this game and say that's the game that they had, come back from behind, took the lead, and should have won. That would have had them in the postseason. But now that they missed it by one game, this will be the one game we look back and say, damn. And like I said, you look at the division the Chicago Bears in with Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota, you can't afford to drop a game like this, especially when you had the Minnesota Vikings who lost on Thursday night to the LA Rams. So, you know what I'm saying? Just let that be a lesson. The game ain't over. You know what I'm saying? But if you're the Washington Commanders, you gotta be proud as hell. You gotta be proud as hell of what's going on in DC right now. Chocolate City. And I did say the Washington Commanders could be the surprise team in this division, but I didn't think they were gonna be like at the top of the division. You know, you gotta tilt your hat to Jayden Daniels. You know, coming to a team under new ownership, a defensive-minded head coach in Dan Quinn. If you look at the overall roster, the wide receiver core that he has is not really, outside of Terry McLaurin, you probably couldn't name no other receiver there. You know, Zach Ertz, the tight end there. You know, they brought in Austin Ekeler in the offseason. Brian Robinson is there. They traded away a receiver in the offseason to the division rival Philadelphia Eagles, Dotson. So, you know, you're looking at the offensive pieces that they had there for Jayden Daniels. It's not really ideal, you know. But when you got a guy like Jayden Daniels that's working with what he got and utilizing all the targets, and you have Dan Quinn, a head coach there, who, like I said, is a defensive-minded coach. So it's not like he's offensive-minded and what Jayden Daniels is just feeding off of him. He's a defensive-minded coach. You know, the Washington Commanders defensively ain't the best team, but they're getting better each week as the season goes. They played damn good defense yesterday, you know, against some pretty solid weapons in Chicago with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet. So you're looking at this team sitting at 6-2 at the top of the division. That, to me, they're only going to get better. You know, they have nowhere else to go but up. You know, they still. You look at the wide receiver core; they damn sure could add to the wide receiver core. You know, now this team here, I'm not saying that they are, but I wouldn't be surprised, which they probably won't, because they probably satisfied with where they at right now at this point in the season with a rookie quarterback and under new ownership, and with Dan Quinn coming in being his first year as the Washington Commanders head coach. You know, I'm not sure if they are going to make a move for a wide receiver, but who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they did. You know, but they getting the job done with what they got. Like I said, outside of Terry McLaurin, you probably couldn't name another wide receiver. You know, like I said, Zach Ertz is a tight end, but you probably couldn't name another wide receiver that they have there. So you gotta tilt your hat to what Dan Quinn and Jay Daniels is doing up there in DC. And like I said, I had picked them to be a surprise team this year, but I didn't think they would be at the top of the division. When I said surprise, I meant that might be one of those teams that could, you know, get in possibly as a wild card, with somebody else losing late in the season or whatever, and they winning and sliding in, that way. But now it looks like they could possibly win the division. I understand teams could have meltdowns or whatever, but the confidence that this team is gaining as the season go, I really don't see that. Anything could happen, but I don't really too much see that. Like I said, the defense is getting better and playing better week by week. I think they added a lot in the offseason. If you look at the moves that they did, it just wasn't a lot to the wide receiver core, but they getting it done with what they got, and you can't be mad at them. 6-2, Jayden Daniels. So, and when it's all said and done, Jayden Daniels could probably be the best quarterback out of this draft class. You know what I'm saying? Now Caleb Williams is starting to come around. Offensively, it's like Jayden Daniels is pretty much trusting Jayden Daniels and handing him the keys to the offense and saying, take us there. And he's doing it. You know what I mean? He's not really being, on a leash. You know what I mean? They let him do his thing. They let him run when he needs to. He's making the throws. He's not turning the ball over. And they're pretty much going down the field. And like I said, they don't have a star-studded wide receiving cast. So, Terry McLaurin, and you really don't look at Terry McLaurin as a number one. To me, I think Terry McLaurin is a solid 2. I don't think he's a 1. I don't think they have a number 1 wide receiver on there. They just going out making the most out of what they got, doing what they do, in my opinion. And as a result of that, they sitting at 6-2. So hats off to the people up there in DC, the fans of the Washington Commanders. I can't say nothing bad about them. They made the right pick with the 2nd overall pick, drafting Jayden Daniels. All this rumor about teams may want to trade up with Washington moving back and all that. They never, in my opinion, wanted to do that because they had their eyes set on Jayden Daniels. They knew what they were getting, so kudos to shouts out to the Washington Commanders and the people up there in DC, giving them something to talk about when it comes to football with Washington Commanders. But moving on, I hate to talk about this game because this team is going absolutely nowhere. Still sitting on 1 win. The Carolina Panthers, who went back to Bryce Young, as they went to Denver and lost 28-14 yesterday. It's so much bad shit going on in Charlotte right now with this Carolina Panther team. Bryce Young, 24-37, 224 yards, 2 TDs, 2 picks, and he was sacked twice. Chuba Hubbard, 15 attempts, 56 rushing yards. Miles Sanders, 1 attempt, 7 yards. Miles Sanders, he has to be on the trading block. But the thing is, I don't know who will want Miles Sanders. I don't think Carolina. Well, first of all, let me just say this about the Panthers. I think they went completely wrong. It was all wrong. They was all off about how to do a rebuild. The Matt Rule experiment didn't work. The Sam Darnold experiment didn't work. The Baker Mayfield experiment didn't work. None of that worked. You didn't get the most back on the guys you traded away, like Christian McCaffrey and Brian Burns. You settled. And instead of taking, the first offer, which was the best offer, and you settled, so you end up losing out on what you could have got for Brian Burns, because it was reported that you could have got 2 firsts for Brian Burns from the LA Rams, but you said no because you wanted to re-sign him just to turn around and trade him to the Giants for a 2nd round pick and another pick or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the deal was, but the offer wasn't as good as what the LA Rams put out on the table for you that you declined. But if you Dave Canals, you got to be looking at this right now. If you the Carolina Panthers and Dave Canals, you really is just an audition year for next year. You just looking at guys. These guys are just auditioning for a roster spot for next year. So you're just using the remainder of this season. Well, that's really what you've been doing all damn season, but you're just really doing it for the remainder of this season, just tryouts. You're just seeing what guys you're gonna keep next year. You're just seeing what guys have value leading up to the trade deadline and what you can ship out and trade to get something back in return, so you can go into the draft or go into free agency with a better outlook of which direction you need to go in. And right now, if you're looking at the Carolina Panthers, you can go in any damn direction. You just pick a spot, pick a position, and go. You know what I mean? Other than maybe the running back position, because you just drafted Jonathan Brooks and he'll soon be ready to go. But outside of that, just pick a damn position and draft there. You can't go wrong, you know. So this is just an audition. The rest of the season is just auditioning. Players are just auditioning, and they're seeing who they're going to keep, who has value that they can trade at the deadline, and who they're going to let go. That's it. You know, so I'm looking for it to be another busy offseason. Or I'm looking for it to be a busy offseason for the Carolina Panthers. They ain't got a damn thing they playing for now. They just playing the season, the schedule, because that's what the NFL season called for. They don't got a damn thing to look forward to. Not a damn thing. Other than the draft. And if you Dave Canals, you was brought in to work with Bryce Young, and I think he knows that Bryce Young is not his guy. They're not going to get rid of Dave Canals after his first year, because that would be, I mean, if they get rid of Dave Canals, the NFL has to step in and take control of this David Tepper and this franchise. They got to do that, because this right here is a bad representation of the NFL brand. You know, the Matt Rule experiment didn't work. Then you brought in Frank Reich for whatever reason, and he ain't last. He ain't last a whole damn season, I don't think. You know, then now you go in, you had Steve Wilkes, a guy that the team seemed to kind of rally around and get energetic around and play. And then you act as bad of a season you had that year, you still came one game away from making the playoffs. You came one game away from winning the division and making the playoffs. It came down to the final game of the season against the Tampa Bay Bucks, in which you lost that game, in which you had a lead and ended up losing that game. And you would have won. If you had won that game, you would have won the division. You would have been in the playoffs. But they didn't want to keep Steve Wilkes, so they elected to go in a different direction, and they just been falling like hell ever since. So there's really nothing. I mean, there's nothing you can say good about the Carolina Panthers now. You know, absolutely nothing. You know, you messed up the rebuild by trying to skip steps and skip the process. But that's part of a rebuild. You have to go through the process. So it's better for you to just go ahead and go on through it than to keep trying to speed up and setting yourself back. Because every time you do that, you only set yourself back. You know what I mean? So, you know, they went out to Denver, you know, lost. They 1-6, 1-7 now, I believe, 1-7 now. So it looked like they headed for another 2-win season. You know, back-to-back years of two wins. That's not a good representation of the NFL brand. They're not getting no primetime games. The damn tickets is probably under $10. And then once you go in, you probably can just pay the minimum ticket, cheapest ticket, and you can just walk down and get any damn seat. Because I don't think the ushers are gonna really be, you know, checking tickets. You know, they probably glad to have somebody down there filling in the damn seats to make it look like fans are there. It's probably more fans there of the visiting team than it is the damn home team. So it's a mess in Carolina right now. They went out to Denver and lost, like I said, they would lose. And next week, I can't remember who they got, but they probably gonna lose that damn game too. I think it's the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. They probably gonna come back home against the Saints and lose that damn game too. As bad as the Saints looking, they still gonna lose the damn game. So, you know, they got a shit show going on in Charlotte right now. Hopefully they can get that shit cleaned up in the next 3 years, you know, because that's probably what it's looking like right now. Unless they have some magical turnaround from somebody, it's definitely going to have to come from somebody that's not currently on the damn roster, because the defense is terrible. I mean, I think it was like 3rd and 11 yesterday, and a toss sweep got them the first down. The damn defense is awful. You know, they got to be last in every damn category. So, you know, it's a shit show right now in Carolina. It's a complete shit show. Moving on, the Dallas Cowboys, Sunday Night Football out in San Fran last night. Um, they end up losing 20, 20, 30 to 24. Um, Dallas Cowboys right now, I think their season is pretty much hanging. You know, I don't think they're gonna make a move at the trade deadline. They didn't make that. They didn't really do shit in the offseason. So I don't in free agency. So I don't think they're gonna do nothing at the trade deadline either. And I keep telling y'all, Jerry Jones is just telling you guys enough to make you think that he wants to win as bad as he make it seems like he wants to win. But in reality, Jerry Jones just wants to market the hell out of that Dallas Cowboy brand, continue to rake in those dollars, and keep that $1 billion brand. You know, he's having tours. Fans can come and do tours or whatever. The team's trying to work out, and it's just fans coming in, taking a tour, and all this other kind of shit, all kind of distract. You know, I think when players see that, they see that this guy is not as concerned, or he's not about winning as much as he would making people think that he's about winning. And I think the players are starting to see that now. So when you lose the players like that, they're not buying into what you're saying. So and they got issues in Dallas. You're looking at Dak Prescott, 25 or 38, 243 yards. He had 2 TDs, but he also threw 2 picks and got sacked twice. So not only do you not have a run game because Zeke had 10 attempts, 34 yards and a TD. Dalvin Cook, who made his Cowboy debut, had 6 rushing attempts for 12 yards. His longest rush was 4 yards. You even had a wide receiver out there with a rushing attempt. So not only do you not have a run game, you really don't have a passing game either. Now, like I said, Dak passed for 243 yards, but 146 of those yards went to one guy, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had 13 catches, 146 yards, and he had both of Dak's TDs. But the number I'm looking at is the 17 targets he got. So you're looking at CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had almost roughly half of the damn Dak's. He was roughly half of Dak's targets. You know what I mean? Attempts was targeted to CeeDee Lamb. The next targeted receiver wasn't even a receiver. It was the tight end Jake Ferguson at 8. So Dallas, you really only have one guy in the passing game, and that's CeeDee Lamb. You don't really have anybody else that the defense can honor and respect. So to be honest with you, defenses is just gonna let CeeDee Lamb catch passes and do this because they don't have to worry about nobody else doing close to what CeeDee Lamb can do. And they're gonna stack the box, stop the run. Because if you're relying on Zeke, and Dalvin Cook is not looking like the Minnesota Vikings Dalvin Cook. Zeke is not looking like the Zeke he was when he was there prior to going to New England. So nobody's really respecting anything about the Dallas Cowboys. You probably don't even have to sell out to stop the run because they don't have a run game worthy of being respected. And then you got one receiver, CeeDee Lamb. So teams are just going to be like, okay, you can throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb, but you're not throwing to nobody else. You know what I mean? CeeDee Lamb is going to do CeeDee Lamb. He's going to get his numbers. The CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott connection is that's good chemistry that they have. So they're just going to let them do them. You know what I mean? And they have nothing else to be scared of when it comes to Dallas Cowboys because the run game is not there, and they don't have another solid number 2 wide receiver that they have to worry about. So, and this is just during the regular season. Now, if it was during the playoffs, I think what they would do with this same roster, I think teams would just put their second best corner on CeeDee Lamb and give that corner help, and then just allow that number 1 corner to take out whoever else that might possibly be doing something. Or if worst case scenario, they'll just put the one on there and give him help. You know what I mean? So there's really nothing else about this Dallas Cowboy team other than the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb connection that anybody's worried about. You can run on this defense. And and it looked like you can throw on the damn defense too, because we don't see Trayvon Diggs looking the same now that he did prior to the knee injury. So George Kittle went off yesterday. Brock Purdy 18 of 26, 260 yards. Brock Purdy had more passing yards and less attempts. He was 25 of 38 for 243. Brock Purdy 18 of 26 for 260. So he had more passing yards and less attempts than Dak Prescott did. You're looking at George Kittle, 6 receptions, 128 yards on the TD. I mean, he pretty much went off. So not only can you run the ball on this Cowboy defense, it looked like your tight end can get involved. And this was really without Deebo Samuel getting off, although he had 4 receptions, 71 yards. The Ricky Pearsall had 4 receptions, 38 yards. So, just Dallas can't stop anybody on the ground or through there. So I'm not looking for Dallas to really do too much of nothing at the trade deadline. They didn't do nothing this offseason in free agency, so I'm thinking they're gonna do the same thing at the deadline. Even though I've heard a couple players rumored to be landing spots for the Cowboys, but I don't think they're gonna actually land in Dallas. I think Dallas is just gonna roll with what they got. And this is gonna be another lost season for Cowboy fans to deal with. I mean, that's just my opinion. Because you just don't look good if you're Dallas. You can't beat San Francisco at home or away. You just can't beat them, regardless of where y'all play. You can't beat them. You don't went out there and they beat you out there, and then they came to your house in Dallas and beat you. So if you Dallas, you just pretty much playing the season out. You'll win some more games this year, but it won't really matter because Washington, in my opinion, is the way they're playing. I think they're just gonna they're gonna remain unless they get hit heavy with the injury bug. And like I said, they already don't have a star-studded wide receiver core, so if they get hit heavy with the injury bug, that could take a toll. And when I say hit heavy, I'm talking about multiple players got to be hit with the injury bug at the same time, and they got to be out for more than just a game or two. They're gonna miss about 4 to 6 weeks. So you know what I mean. But I don't wish that on nobody. But that's the only scenario I see in which the Washington Commanders are gonna slow down in that division. Because like I said, I think they're getting better each week, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And Jayden Daniels' confidence is only growing. So that team is going to continue to grow and continue to wheel off wins and continue to go up in that division. And I don't see Dallas or the Giants. And, Philly is up and down. So that's the only team that's really consistent in that division, in my opinion. And it's just an assed-out season for the Cowboys. But moving on, Chiefs, Raiders. You saw Kansas City take care of Vegas 27-20. The Las Vegas Raiders was the last team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but they also gave the Carolina Panthers their one and only victory this year. So, that's not a good – I mean, on one hand, you did something good by beating Kansas City, and on the other hand, you're the only team that lost to the Carolina Panthers this year and gave them their one and only win. And they came to Vegas and beat you at home. So it continues to spiral for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now I don't know. I'm not on the inside. I'm just speaking on what I see from the outside looking in. I'm not actually within the circle of what's going on out there in Vegas with the Raiders. But for some reason last year when Antonio Pierce took over and they got Josh McDaniels up out of there, it seemed like the team was rejuvenated. It seemed like the team had more energy. It seemed like the team was willing to go above and beyond and play extra hard for Antonio Pierce. But for whatever reason, I just don't see that same enthusiasm with this team this year. Like I said last year, this is the same team that actually this was the last team, like I said, that beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And they beat them in Kansas City. And they seem to play rejuvenated football. They seem to have hit some type of new energy. And I thought that was going to carry over into the offseason, then carry over into the regular season with Antonio Pierce now being the full-time head coach there. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Pat Mahomes, 27 to 38, 262 yards passing, 2 TDs, one pick, once and got sacked once. Kareem Hunt, 21 attempts, 59 yards and a TD. Looking at Travis Kelce, 10 receptions, 90 yards and a TD. And they just newly acquired receiver D Hopkins. Two receptions, 29 yards on 3 targets. So for whatever reason, it's like, and I've said this before, it's like the Kansas City Chiefs is the new version of the New England Patriots. You got Andy Reid being the offensive version of Bill Belichick because Bill Belichick was a defensive guy. You got Pat Mahomes essentially being, the newer version of what Tom Brady was. Travis Kelce is equivalent to Gronk, so to speak. And you look at the wide receiver core, outside of Randy Moss, when Randy Moss was in New England, outside of that, you really didn't have a star-studded wide receiver. And Randy Moss left, New England. And outside of Tyreek Hill, when he was in Kansas City, they didn't really have a star-studded receiver. They just now got D-Hop, but D-Hop is not star-studded now as he once was. So it's like a newer version of the New England Patriots. They just replace receivers and keep moving. You don't really have a star-studded running back. They just plug players in and keep going. They have a system. They plug in and they keep moving. They still undefeated, although there's some calls in about 4 or 5 games that they benefited from, some crucial calls at some crucial times in the game that they actually benefited from, that they could have easily, they easily wouldn't be undefeated. But since they benefited from the calls, they sitting undefeated right now. And like I said, if you are the Las Vegas Raiders right now, you got a lot. You're doing pretty much the same thing the Carolina Panthers is doing. You're looking at the roster, and you got these guys out here auditioning for their job, seeing who you're going to keep, who you're going to let go. You're looking at guys who may have some trade value leading up to the trade deadline that's coming up shortly, and seeing who can go. And you've already traded Devontae Adams, so you've got one piece out of there, and you're just looking at all options for the remainder of this season that you could use to get better going into the offseason for next season. So you're in the same boat if you the Raiders is the Carolina Panthers, especially with Antonio Pierce being his first year as the full-time head coach after taking over from Josh McDaniels getting fired. So that's pretty much what you're doing if you the Raiders. You're looking at quarterbacks that's coming out. You're looking at skill positions because you're going to need wide receivers. Now you got 2 tight ends there. You got Myers, and you got Brock Bowers, who you took in the first round this past draft. So that's exactly what you're doing if you're out there in Vegas. Tom Brady is now a minority owner. So you might be working with Tom Brady, and he may have a lot of input on which direction you're gonna go. But that's exactly what you're doing if you are the Las Vegas Raiders. Moving on, Saints Chargers. The game actually started out kind of slow and boring as hell, point wise. You know what I mean? But the Chargers end up scoring 26 points as they beat the Saints at home, 26-8. Spencer Rattler eventually got benched. He was 12 of 24, 156 yards, and got sacked 3 times. So if you the Saints, you another team that's pretty much just playing the season out. Alvin Kamara, 10 attempts, 67 yards. Your quarterback situation is not ideal. You got your receivers are down. You started the season 2-0. You beat the hell out the Panthers, which ain't saying much. You put 47 up on them, and then you went to Dallas and put 44 up on them. So those first 2 wins are kind of, and I know that they were the first 2 games of the season, and we didn't know then that these teams were going to be like, well, especially Dallas. We knew Carolina was going to be ass, but we didn't think that the Dallas Cowboys will continue the trajectory of being, ass on the defensive side of the ball, especially the way they played that week 1 game in Cleveland. They look poised to be a damn good team this year. But that spiraled in the opposite direction real quick the following week when the Saints went out to Dallas. But if you the Saints, you pretty much doing the same thing. And as I mentioned earlier, and I made a video on this, Dennis Allen was one of the coaches that I had on the hot seat this season. So in that first two games, it didn't look like that. But now it's kind of starting to get back to what I originally said about Dennis Allen being on the hot seat, and he may be gone. Outside of Alvin Kamara, you really can't really name anybody else on the offensive side of the ball other than Chris Olave. He had 8 receptions, 107 yards on 14 targets. Alvin Kamara had 11 targets in the passing game, and that's your running back. And he had 6 receptions for 55 yards. So and I get it, Rashid is out for the season, which is a big blow to your offense because he was a deep threat. He was another solid option on the offensive side of the ball, deep threat option. But right now, if you're the New Orleans Saints, you're doing the same thing. Chase Young, if you can get something for him, let him go. Chase Young right now, in my opinion, is pretty much is like Clowney. He's not living up to the hype of what he should be at the NFL, just like Clowney never lived up to the hype of what he should be in the NFL, in my opinion. And that's the vibes that I get from Chase Young. He's not living up to the hype. And he's now starting to become a journeyman like Jadeveon Clowney. After Clowney at Houston, Cleveland, Baltimore, now Carolina, and Carolina has him possibly on the trading block. So Chase Young was Washington, San Fran, New Orleans, and probably not even gonna keep him because if they can get off for him at the trade deadline, he'll be gone. So he's pretty much like a Jadeveon Clowney, in my opinion, not living up to the hype of what he should be in the NFL, and now is starting to become a journeyman in the NFL on 2-year deals at most. Nobody's going to give him a deal beyond 2 years because he ain't living up to the hype. He's not proven. So, you got that going if you New Orleans. But on the other side of you, the LA Chargers, Justin Herbert, 20 or 32, 279 yards, 2 TDs, and he got sacked 3 times. J.K. Dobbins, 17 rush attempts, 57 yards and a TD. Ladd McConkey had 6 receptions, 111 yards and 2 TDs. That's another team that just needs to Harbaugh just getting there. I get it, first year in LA. They need to add to the wide receiver core. Because if you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, just add some wide receivers there. I'm not sure what's going on with Quentin Johnson, the first round pick out of TCU. Last year's first round pick out of TCU. Not sure what's going on with him. But they just need to go and get a solid go-to wide receiver. They picked up a nice receiver, Ladd McConkey out of Georgia, in I think it was the second round of his past draft. He's going to be solid for them. And it seems like him and Justin Herbert have already built a little chemistry. But other than that, I'm not looking for the LA Chargers to do a whole lot. This is just, they just starting to get warmed up, starting to get their feet wet a little bit with Harbaugh's first year out there. Bills Seahawks, Buffalo 31-10 over Seattle, made the cross-country trip. I actually took Buffalo to win this game. For some reason, I don't know what the hell is going on out there in Seattle. I thought this was going to be a pretty decent, pretty solid team this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. For some reason, they seem to play better away than they do at home. They came off a victory last week in Atlanta, in which I didn't think they were going to win that game. And then I thought they were going to come back home and build off of the momentum that they won in Atlanta last week. But they didn't do that. They come back home and they only scored 10 points against the Buffalo Bills. Seattle, Geno Smith, 21 of 29, 212 yards and a pick, and he was sacked as well. Looking at Kenneth Walker, 9 attempts, 12 yards. That's not going to cut it. Geno Smith, 5 attempts, 16 yards. That's not going to cut it. Jackson Smith and Jigma, 6 receptions, 69 yards. Kenneth Walker, 4 receptions, 33 yards. Noah Fant, 3 receptions, 22 yards. That's just not going to cut it, man. I don't know what the hell is going on with Seattle. They've seemed to hit like an offensive wall out there. So I would be looking for Seattle to be in the market for drafting the quarterback in this year's draft in April. So what I mean, because what they doing at home, it just ain't gonna cut it. It just ain't gonna cut it. 31-10. You lost to Buffalo. Josh Allen, 24-34, 283 yards, 2 TDs. He threw a pick and he got sacked once. James Cook, 17 rush attempts, 111 yards, and 2 TDs. I had him on my fantasy team, and he gave me numbers. Josh Allen had 7 rush attempts, 25 yards. Mitchell Trubisky even had 3 rush attempts. I mean, he was in the negatives, but he had, negative 3 yards. Keon Coleman, 5 receptions, 70 yards, and a TD. Shakur, he had 10 targets, he had 9 receptions, 107 yards. Amari Cooper, 2 targets, 1 reception, 3 yards. I don't know. You got the victory, 31-10. But Amari Cooper, give him more than 2 targets. Now Amari Cooper needs to get if he needs to get up to speed on the offense. Then that's one thing. If that's the case, then just don't have him out there getting cardio. 2 targets, he only caught 1 reception for 3 yards. I mean, that's just I don't understand that. I think they need to get more Amari Cooper more involved. But it's good that you won the game, So I guess as long as you win in the game, then you could kind of bring him along at the speed that he need to be brought along. And the main thing is you went out to Seattle and you got the victory. 31-10 Buffalo. Colts, Texans. The Texans edged them out 23-20. Anthony Richardson, 10 of 32, 175 yards, 1 TD, 1 pick, and he got sacked 5 times. Jonathan Taylor had 20 rush attempts, 105 yards, and a TD. You're looking at Josh Downs, 4 receptions, 109 yards, and a TD. Michael Pittman, 1 reception, 16 yards. Trey Sermon, 1 reception, 14 yards. Jonathan Taylor, 1 reception, 12 yards. A.D. Mitchell, 1 reception, 9 yards. And if you Houston, C.J. Stroud, 25 of 37, 285 yards. He had a TD, and he was sacked twice. Joe Mixon, 25 rush attempts, 102 yards, and a TD. Damian Pierce, 1 rush attempt, 4 yards. Stephon Diggs had 5 receptions, 81 yards on 9 targets. Dalton Schultz, 4 receptions, 52 yards on 6 targets. Tank Dell, 4 receptions, 35 yards. And Mixon had 4 receptions, 32 yards. Mechie, he caught 3 passes too, 29 yards. Divisional game. Division games usually be kind of tight. You know what I'm saying? But I think if you the main thing, you just have to. If you Houston, you just got to continue to find ways to win games like this. And if you Indy, I think you really are dealing with Anthony Richardson, a guy who you drafted that didn't have a lot of games played under his belt, coming out of Florida when you drafted him. So I think the games and what you're seeing from Anthony Richardson is just from a lack of having games played under his belt when you drafted him. So you're looking at Anthony Richardson. I don't look for the Colts, especially when he's injury prone or starting his NFL career off, slightly injury prone, along with Jonathan Taylor. Those are your 2 main pieces, and both of them are slightly injury prone players. To start off. So I think with Anthony Richardson, it just may be a time thing because, like I said, when you drafted him out of Florida, he didn't have a lot of games played under his belt when you drafted him. So that might just be a time thing with him. I think what you just need to do if you Indy, you just need to keep adding pieces. Just keep adding pieces, find an identity and build around that. A.D. Mitchell, I think, you drafted A.D. Mitchell. That's a nice piece to have offensively, along with Jonathan Taylor. But like I said, those guys are injury prone. So, he's in, is out, he's in, is out, he's in and out. I think you just have to get some consistent health offensively if you are the Indianapolis Colts. And like I said, for Houston, you just got to continue to win games like this, the way you're finding ways to win these type of games. and Houston will be fine. Houston, even though Nico Collins is out, but they'll be fine. The Ravens traveled to Cleveland. No Deshaun Watson, and they picked up the victory 29-24 over division rival Baltimore Ravens. If you look at it, Lamar Jackson, 23 of 38, 289 yards, 2 TDs, and he was sacked 3 times. Derrick Henry, 11 rush attempts, 73 yards, and a TD. Lamar Jackson had 8 rush attempts, 46 yards. Receiving, Zay Flowers, he had 12 targets. He had 7 receptions, 115 yards. Isaiah Likely, 4 receptions, 47 yards. Mark Andrews, 5 receptions, 36 yards. And like I keep saying, Isaiah Likely, in my opinion, he needs more targets. I think he's an athletic tight end that you could line up at, on the line, or you can split him out wide in the slot or out wide, especially in the red zone, where you get some mismatch opportunities, throwing up some back shoulders, some 50-50 jump balls. I think Isaiah Likely is a guy that, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far of the Baltimore Ravens, I don't think they use him enough. Especially when you look at the Baltimore Ravens. If you had to point out a weak area of the Baltimore Ravens, you probably would point at the wide receiver core, although they got Zay Flowers. I think that, outside of Zay Flowers, they're not really deep enough at the wide receiver position. And when you got a guy like Isaiah Likely, who can be a mismatch problem for defenses if you put him in the right position out there on the field and give him enough snaps and put him in the right position, I think there would be a mismatch problem. You can utilize 2 tight end sets more. But like I said, that would be an area, in my opinion, from what I see, if you had to point out a weakness of the Baltimore Ravens, it would be the wide receiver core. Because they've been kind of shuffling through wide receivers these past couple of years. They went out and got Odell Beckham, had him last year, and that didn't work out to their liking, as they didn't bring him back, and he's now down in Miami, and I don't think he's playing much down there, if he's playing at all. But if you are the Cleveland Browns, Jameis Winston, 27 of 41, 334 yards, 3 TDs, no picks, and 2 sacks. Now, Jameis Winston he'll sling the ball now. He'll sling it. Just the things you worry about is slinging the ball to the wrong team. But then he'll bounce back and continue to add a ball out. You know what I mean? And as you saw yesterday, he had 334 yards passing with 3 TDs and no picks. He didn't throw a pick. Nick Chubb, 16 attempts, 52 yards. Deontay Foreman, 5 attempts, 26 yards. Elijah Moore had 12 targets. He led the way with 12 targets, 8 receptions, 85 yards. Tillman had 7 receptions, 99 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 5 receptions, 79 yards. David Njoku, 5 receptions, 61 yards. Nick Chubb, he had 2 targets, but he didn't have a catch. So that was a big win if you Cleveland. Hate to see what happened to Deshaun Watson, tearing Achilles. Obviously, he's done for the season. But you had Jameis Winston step in and play big. And they came out of there with a win over division rival Baltimore Ravens. Now, I don't know what pieces they're looking to sell off at the trade deadline. As you know, Amari Cooper is already gone. He's over there in Buffalo. So I'm not sure who else on the defensive side of the ball could pop up in trade rumors. I heard something about Denzel Ward maybe. Teams are going to be looking at Darius Smith. But I'm not sure if the Cleveland Browns are going to part ways. And I don't think Cleveland's going to do much of nothing the remainder of the season. They'll win a few more games, but I don't think that Cleveland Browns is gonna. They're not making the playoffs. So maybe they would be setting themselves up for next season. I don't think they're gonna trade Myles Garrett. I've heard teams calling and inquiring about him. But I don't think Cleveland's gonna move him. But I think they just, probably may look into moving somebody, but it's not a major piece. I think they're gonna look more into what they can do about the quarterback situation, if anything, and then if they can bring in another wide receiver, whether it's through free agency or drafting one, to replace what they lost in Amari Cooper. to go opposite of Jerry Jeudy, and then you got a solid tight end, David Njoku. So I think that's what Cleveland is doing. I don't think they're doing much of nothing the rest of the season. They'll win a couple more games, a few more games or whatever, but it's not going to be nothing to get them close to the playoffs at all. Even if other teams lose, they help them out. They still not going nowhere. They're not making the playoffs. But that was a good victory for the Cleveland Browns yesterday to come out there and take care of the division rival Baltimore Ravens. Packers at Jaguars, Jordan Love suffered a groin injury, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure exactly how severe the injury is, but they went down to Jacksonville, took care of the Jaguars, 30-27. Jordan Love, 14 of 22, 196 yards and a pick. Malik Willis had to step in for him. He went 4 or 5, 56 yards and a TD, and he was sacked once. But Josh Jacobs, 25 rush attempts, 127 yards and 2 TDs. If you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, your trade piece that you were rumored to move or teams were inquiring about is now done for the season. Christian Kirk, broken collarbone. But Trevor Lawrence, 21 of 32, 308 yards, 2 TDs, a pick, and a sack, and he was sacked. Tank Bigsby, 18 attempts, 78 yards. Pretty much, I think Tank Bigsby is almost pretty much taking over, despite what they say about ETN. I think Tank Bigsby has played well enough to be the running back one over there, and if they want to move ETN, that wouldn't be a bad idea at all. The other guy that they were getting calls about, and that's pretty much a wrap. Like I said, Christian Kirk, broken collarbone. He's out for the season. So that trade piece is that's pretty much done. And I think they're gonna move off of him in the offseason. That's just my opinion, but their rookie Brian Thomas, 3 receptions, 60 yards and a TD. I think that's the new go-to guy. Evan Ingram, he had 4 receptions, 36 yards and a TD. So those are the 2 guys, and they're definitely going to go and get another receiver in this offseason, whether it's free agency or drafting, because I think they found their guy in Brian Thomas, the first round draft pick out of LSU. I think they found Trevor Lawrence has found a connection with this guy, even though he only had 60 receiving yards yesterday. But if you look at previous games, he's getting the targets. Although he only had 4 yesterday, but he's getting the targets, and he seemed to have built some type of chemistry with Trevor Lawrence. So that's that. And Christian Kirk, I think they're gonna move off of him. They probably was gonna trade him up until he broke his collarbone yesterday. So that's what I think. The route Jacksonville, I think they taking that. But as far as Green Bay coming down there taking care of business, I predicted that that's what they would do. I didn't think the game was going to be a 30-27. I thought it was going to be, Green Bay was going to beat them by more than that, by at least 13 points. That's what I thought that Green Bay was going to do. But Green Bay, like I said, that division, the NFC North with Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, and Chicago, that's a tough division. And Green Bay keep finding ways to win. Don't know how severe that injury is for Jordan Love, as he's already suffered the injury early this year, and I thought he was going to be out longer with that injury, but he came back. Now he's injured again, so we'll have to wait and see what's the severity of this injury for the Green Bay Packers. Robert Saleh, he's over there now with the Green Bay Packers, spotted over there. I'm not sure if what they're going to work out and how long he's, what they're going to do with Robert Saleh over there, but that's crazy. You get fired from the Jets and then you go to Aaron Rodgers' former team, and I'm going to get into the Jets. Actually, now let's get into the Jets. They went to Foxborough and lost to the Patriots. If you are the Jets, it's over. It's over. You took a big swing and a miss bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Father Time is undefeated. You took a chance, you gambled, and you lost. It didn't work. Not only did you gamble on Aaron Rodgers and it not working, now who knows what it would have been like had Aaron Rodgers not torn his Achilles last season in the first game of the season. I think it was like 4 plays into the first game of the season. So we never know what that season would have been last year. But what we do know is the Jets won 7 games with Zach Wilson as the quarterback and Robert Saleh as the head coach. But neither Zach Wilson or Robert Saleh is there now. Robert Saleh, you fired a couple weeks ago, and Zach Wilson, he's backing up out there in Denver. But what we do know is you went to Foxborough yesterday, and you lost to Drake May and Jacoby Brissett. And it don't look like the Davante Adams trade is helping you out, which I didn't think it was going to help you out anyway. I thought you had a pretty solid, serviceable wide receiver group, especially when you had a wide receiver guy like Garrett Wilson there. And then you said that once you fired Robert Saleh that you was going to commit more to the run game after you go and make a trade for Davante Adams. I'm not sure how much of the run game you was going to commit to after making a trade for Davante Adams. So, that's another thing that's kind of all over the place. You're pretty much wasting a solid defense. Then you get Hassan Reddick to come back. You lost Tremaine Johnson, I believe, but you get Hassan Reddick back out of his holdout. You get him back in. But if you're the Jets, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, 17 of 28, 233 yards, 2 TDs, and you got sacked once. Breece Hall, 16 rush attempts, 80 yards. Braylon Allen, 12 attempts, 32 yards. So you got 28 rush attempts between your two backs, but you only netted 112 yards rushing off of 32 attempts. And you got Braylon Allen had a TD. Garrett Wilson, 5 receptions, 113 yards. Davante Adams, 4 receptions, 54 yards. Conklin, 3 receptions, 42 yards. So yeah, the Jets offense, even though you put up 22 points, you gave up 25. I didn't think the Jets were going to lose this game. I think this was a game the Jets needed to win, but obviously they didn't win. So the New York Jets right now, the season is pretty much, I don't think they're going to turn this around. Father Time seems to have caught up with Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, the New York Jets, they took a huge swing and it missed. They took a big gamble and it didn't pay off. Not only did you gamble on Aaron Rodgers, but you gambled on bringing his partner in there and trading for his partner in Davante Adams, and that doesn't seem to be working. So if you're the Jets, you really got to go into this offseason and get your staff right. You got to get your staff right because you got good pieces on the defensive side of the ball, and Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers that we've seen in Green Bay. So you might want to look – you're going to have to get your quarterback situation right eventually. You drafted Jordan Travis, the quarterback out of Florida State, but obviously he ain't ready to play. You drafted him injured from that gruesome injury that he suffered at Florida State last year. So if you're the Jets, man, you got a lot to do this offseason because the gamble that you took and the swing that you swung and missed at, it's just it ain't paying off. It ain't panning out. And then you traded for Davante Adams, and it's still not panning out. And I don't think it's going to pan out. It was a good victory for New England as they picked up their second win of the season. Jacoby Brissett, 15 of 24, 132 yards. He got sacked once. Drake made 3 of 6, 23 yards, and he got sacked once. Stevenson, 20 rush attempts, 48 yards, 2 TDs. There's nothing really that stood out about the receiving from the New England Patriots. I mean, they just did enough to win the game, 25-22. And this says more about the Jets than it do the Patriots because we weren't looking at the Patriots to do much of nothing this season anyway, with Gerard Mayo being a rookie head coach with a rookie quarterback in Drake May. So we weren't looking at the New England Patriots to do much this season anyway. But the New York Jets, we're expecting you to bounce back much better this season considering the situation that happened last year with the Aaron Rodgers injury in the first game of the season. Now, if you went 7-10 with Robert Saleh as your head coach and Zach Wilson as your quarterback, you certainly got to win. And I said this in a previous video. You have to win at least 10 games this year if you won 7 last year with Robert Saleh as your head coach and Zach Wilson as your quarterback. Now that you got Aaron Rodgers back, you can't win less games this year with him back than you won last year losing him with Zach Wilson as your quarterback. Now that you fired Robert Saleh and the situation ain't got no better. So really, was he the issue? Which I don't think he was. I just think you had some diva ways going on right now with Aaron Rodgers, and I don't know why people keep excusing it and finding and justifying and trying to find excuses for this guy. You're not winning. Father Time is caught up with you, so you don't need to be having these certain demands. And I ain't gonna sit here for 1 second and believe that he didn't know that Robert Saleh was gonna get fired. I think he knew that he was gonna get fired. He might have not knew the time or day that it was gonna happen, but I believe that he knew, because I think he had something to do with it. And now that you're coming out here and you losing games that you're supposed to be winning, and it don't even look like you're gonna be on pace to win 7 games that you won last year with Zach Wilson as your quarterback and Robert Saleh as your head coach. So, it's a bad situation with the Jets right now, and they just need to go ahead and wrap this season up because Father Time is caught up with their quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Cardinals at Dolphins. I took the Dolphins to win this one, but it didn't happen. They came up a point short, 28-27. Arizona went on the road and got the win. I think it was the return of Tua. 28 of 38, 234 yards, a TD, and he got sacked once. Devon, he had 10 rush attempts, 97 yards. Mostert, 9 attempts, 19 yards. Tyreek Hill, 6 receptions, 72 yards on 9 targets. Jalen Waddle, 4 receptions, 45 yards. I think it might be a little too late for this Dolphins. I think you right now you're looking at the situation with Tua. He's returned from being concussion prone. This is what he's returning from, a concussion. And it's just the numbers offensively this season ain't close to being there of what they were last year. I think they finished first in damn near all the offensive categories that you could finish in offensively, but that just ain't the case this year. The Arizona Cardinals making the cross-country trip came out 28-27 as Kyler Murray was 26-36, 307 yards, 2 TDs, no picks, no sacks. James Conner, 20 attempts, 53 yards and a TD. Trey McBride, 11 targets, 9 receptions, 124 yards. Marvin Harrison, 6 receptions, 111 yards. And they're finally getting him more involved. 7 targets, 6 receptions, 111 yards. They finally get him more involved as they should. Being the first receiver taken off the board and being Marvin Harrison, you in looking at what he did, you should consistently be looking to get this man, always get this man involved. The only thing that you shouldn't be getting, the only reason why you shouldn't be getting this man involved is that he ain't on the field. And for him not to be on the field, he's got to be injured or something like that. But as long as he out there on the field and he's eligible to play, you should always have this man in your game plans to get him involved. But they went on the road, took care of the Miami Dolphins 28-27. Falcons, Bucks. I'm surprised this game was as close as it was because the Bucks was without Mike Evans. They were without Chris Godwin. They're not going to have him for the remainder of the season due to that injury that he suffered last game with the Baltimore Ravens. If you look at the Falcons, who last time these two teams played, I think Kirk Cousins threw for like over 500 yards. It was on Thursday night. And they won in Atlanta, and then they just went on the road and won in Tampa. So they sweep the Tampa Bay Bucks season series between these two teams. Cousins, 23 of 29, 276 yards, 4 TDs, 2 sacks. Bijan Robinson, 13 attempts, 63 yards. Tyler Algier, 12 attempts, 33 yards. Darnell Mooney had 5 receptions, 92 yards, and a TD. Kyle Pitts, 4 receptions, 91 yards, and 2 TDs. Bijan Robinson, 6 receptions, 37 yards, and a TD. Drake London, 4 receptions, 34 yards. I think it's just that the Atlanta Falcons are starting to kind of hit their stride. Kirk Cousins is starting to get back, especially when he played Tampa the first time this season, throwing for over 500 yards against him. Kirk Cousins is starting to get back into his groove, and which I don't, him and Aaron Rodgers had the same Achilles injury. So he's starting to hit his groove. Why the hell Aaron Rodgers ain't? It was like I said, Father Time is caught up. But we're done with the Jets. The Falcons starting to hit their groove into the regular season. a nice bounce back victory for the Atlanta Falcons after losing at home last week to the Seattle Seahawks. I think this is a case and situation where they have so many weapons offensively that each week somebody's going to take a hit. Somebody's not going to consistently get their numbers because they have too many playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, and there's only one ball to go around. Kyle Pitts hasn't really gotten off this season like he should have been. He's not as involved as they say that he would be from when I seen him play. I don't think Bijan Robinson has really been getting off. He's been consistently at a certain level in his offense, but he's not really getting off like he's capable of getting off in his offense. I think they just spreading the ball around to everybody. Darnell Mooney have games where he go off and then he don't be involved for the next 2 games or so. Drake London, the same thing. He go off and then the next 2 games is somebody else. Kyle Pitts might go off and then the next 3 games he's somebody else. Tyler Algier he make the most out of the opportunities when he's in there. But it's just a case where the Falcons got a lot of weapons, and each week it's not going to be 1 or 2 players that go off. It's going to be different players going off different weeks because there's only one ball to go around. But the Falcons are hitting their stride, especially Kirk Cousins. And pretty much you can just go ahead and if unless Atlanta get hit with the injury bug, it's almost like you can just go ahead and give the Falcons almost like, I ain't said do it, but it's almost like looking at the NFC South with Tampa being down 2 receivers right now, and one of them, and Chris Godwin, is done for the season. Mike Evans is going to miss about 3 games or so, maybe 4, dealing with a hamstring issue. So they're going to be down 2 wide receivers for a while. The 1 and the number 2, not just 2 receivers, but the number 1 and the number 2 receiver. They really haven't found, quite who's going to be the number 1 running back, but they're just using running backs. If you look at Tampa, Baker Mayfield yesterday, he still threw for over 300 yards, 37 of 50, 330 yards, 3 TDs, 2 picks, and he did not get sacked. And I just seen breaking news: the Kansas City Chiefs are trading for a linebacker from New England. But Bucky Irving, 9 attempts, 44 yards. They didn't have a stellar ground game. It was just Baker Mayfield through the air. Particularly the tight end got 10 targets, 9 receptions, 81 yards, and 2 TDs. And I think that's probably going to be the new number 1 tight end to at least – the new number 1 option is the tight end until at least Mike Evans come back, because, like I said, there's going to be no more Chris Godwin this season. So I'm surprised that this game was even this close. 31-26, Atlanta with the win in Tampa. Like I said, they sweep Tampa season series, take both games from Tampa this year. And you can all pretty much pencil, in my opinion, not completely, but you can pencil, not ink, but pencil in the Atlanta Falcons as the division winner, because the Saints have hit a downfall. Damn, Panthers ain't never got started this season, and now you're looking at 2 of the top receivers for the Tampa Bay Bucks are out. I think that Baker's still going to put up numbers, but it's not going to be enough numbers to keep up in the division with the Falcons. As I said, the Falcons are starting to hit their stride. And last time these 2 teams played, Kirk Cousins had over 500 yards passing. So Atlanta is just going to consistently keep, hitting that stride. There's going to be games that Atlanta should win, but they won't, just like last week. They based off of how Seattle played coming back home this week against the Buffalo Bills, they should have beat the Seattle Seahawks in Atlanta last week, but that didn't happen. And as I stated before, the Seattle Seahawks seem to play better on the road than they do at home. But moving on, Titans, Lions, this was the ugliest game of the week, 52-14, Detroit. I think Detroit is the team to beat in the NFC. I think all roads are going to lead through Detroit. You look at Detroit, Jared Goff really didn't. 12 of 15, 85 yards. He threw 3 TDs. He was sacked 4 times. The story was Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 attempts, 127 yards and a TD. I also had him on my fantasy team, and he did me some numbers. David Montgomery, 9 attempts, 33 yards. They had 3 quarterbacks getting Hendon Hooker got in 2 or 3 6 yards. But 52-14, there really was nothing else to say. Detroit did what they want, when they want it, how they want it. And I think, like I said, this is the team to beat in the NFC. the Detroit Lions. If they continue on this trajectory, this will be the team to beat. And they already looking like a Super Bowl contender, or well, not Super Bowl contender, but looking like the team that's going to be representing the NFC at the Super Bowl. Unless something major happen with this team, I'm gonna stick with that. All roads are gonna lead through Detroit. Detroit is the team to beat in the NFC. Meanwhile, you look at the Tennessee Titans, who just traded away D-Hop over to Kansas City. Mason Rudolph, 22 of 38, 266 yards, a TD, 2 picks, and he was sacked once. Tony Pollard, 20 rush attempts, 94 yards. Calvin Ridley, 10 receptions, 143 yards on 15 targets. So he led the way in targets and receptions and yards by far. He was the receiver. He was the receiver yesterday. For Tennessee. You're looking at Tennessee. I think they still sitting on 1 win too. I think those might be the only 1-win teams, Tennessee and Carolina, because New England won yesterday, Cleveland won yesterday. And I got to double check what's Jacksonville record, but I think they sitting on 2 wins if I'm not mistaken. If you're Jacksonville, I think you are on 2 wins if you're Jacksonville. So only teams that I know of that's sitting on 1 win is the Panthers and the Titans, because like I said, the Browns won yesterday and the New England Patriots won yesterday. So you gotta go back to the drawing boards if you're Tennessee. You may be doing the same thing Carolina doing, looking to see who you're gonna keep next year. One thing we do know, Will Levis is not the guy, so that's definitely gonna be a position they looking to improve on. And get better at the quarterback position, because we've seen Will Levis not the guy. Now, who else they look to move at the trade deadline, I don't know, but that's what we do know about the Tennessee Titans. Is they ain't doing nothing this year. Yeah, they in the same boat as Carolina. They just looking to playing out the regular season to see who stays, who goes, and looking to see who else has any trade value that they can move off of, as they've already done D-Hop. Eagles, Bengals, 37-17, Eagles. Philly winning in Cincinnati and took care of business. Jalen Hurts, 16 of 20, 236 yards. He had a passing TD. Then Jalen Hurts had 10 rush attempts, 37 yards, and 3 rushing TDs. Saquon, 22 attempts, 108 yards. Shipley, 2 attempts, negative 3 yards. Devontae Smith led the way with 7 targets, and he led the way with 6 receptions, 85 yards, and a TD. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 84 yards. Saquon had a reception for 3 yards. But Joe Burrow, 26 of 37, 234 yards, 1 TD, 1 pick, and he got sacked once. Chase Brown, 12 attempts, 32 yards, and a TD. Mike Gesicki, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 73 yards. Jamar Chase had 11 targets, 9 receptions, 54 yards, and a TD. Jermaine Burton, 3 targets, 1 reception, 41 yards. Cincinnati, it just seems like they're all offense and no defense. So T. Higgins didn't play, so I'm looking. T. Higgins will be gone after this season. He'll be on another roster next season. Cincinnati, like I said, they just defensively, they're not there this year. They're all offense, and no defense. Philly, to me, they're up and down. This was just the week they were up. Now next week they might be down, but this week they're up. And I think it's helping them out and getting better with having both of their receivers back. Now they've been had them back for a few weeks now, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So, and combined with the run game of what you're getting out of Saquon staying healthy, having a damn good year so far in Philly. So, hopefully the Eagles can build off of this and be the Eagles team that we expect them to be this season. Nick Sirianni, it's still to be said whether he's going to be there next season or not, because I still think he's on the hot seat. I think that Nick Sirianni, you can't judge what this team does in the regular season as to whether Nick Sirianni is going to be there next season or not. I think Nick Sirianni, the real coaching for Nick Sirianni starts in the postseason. You have to get into the postseason because, like I said, Washington ain't going nowhere. Washington's got a chokehold on his division, and I think they're going to continue to get better as the season goes. So, Philly just has to make sure they get in the playoffs, which I think they will. And that's when the real coaching starts for Nick Sirianni. If he comes up short of the NFC Championship game or short of the Super Bowl, rather, I think he's going to be gone. I think the moves that this team has made, the players that they put in certain positions, they built the Super Bowl roster. They have the pieces to get there. They just have to pick it up on defense, but they have the pieces to get there. And, the regular season is not an indication of whether Nick Sirianni will be there. Now, I think the playoffs is going to be the indication of whether Nick Sirianni is there or not. But, yeah, we got Monday Night Football, Giants at Steelers, I'm sorry. The Steelers sitting at 5-2. They made the quarterback switch from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson. They beat the Jets last week. The Giants, it's a good thing they're not at MetLife because they can't seem to get a passing touchdown at MetLife to save their damn life. Going to Pittsburgh, Giants 2-5. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers to win that game. I just don't see nothing about what the Giants are doing to make me believe they're going to go down to Pittsburgh and win this game. Defensively, Pittsburgh is just too much, in my opinion, for the struggling New York Giants, especially a team who struggle to throw passing touchdowns. I think the pass rush is going to get after Daniel Jones. And I think the Steelers are going to improve to 6-2, which is the surprise team in that division. I didn't think the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point would be 5-2, looking to go 6-2 at this point during the season, especially making the quarterback change. They were 4-2 with Justin Fields. So, I'm still kind of looking for reasons why they made the change to Russell Wilson when you had a quarterback in Justin Fields that had you sitting at a 4-2 record. My guess is, this is my guess, that the pick that they traded to the Chicago Bears for Justin Fields, I think it was a 5th-round pick, and depending on Justin Fields' playing time as a starter, that turns into a 4th-round pick. So I'm guessing that they don't want to give Justin Fields that kind of time as a starter to convert that 5th-round pick to a 4th-round pick. So that's the only reason I would see. But other than that, if Russell Wilson wasn't ready to go week 1 and you went and had to go with Justin Fields and you won that week 1 game in Atlanta and you sitting at 4-2 and you make the change and Russell Wilson get a win versus the Jets, now you're 5-2 and he's playing the Giants looking to get another win, which I think they will, and move to 6-2. It's like, what other reason did you have to move off of a 4-2 quarterback that had you in a position that many didn't think you would be in, to go to a quarterback who had won the starting job, but the backup has got you sitting at 4-2, and it came down to the last second of who was announced as winning that starting quarterback job in Pittsburgh. It wasn't outright Justin Fields' job, and it wasn't outright Russell Wilson's job. Those guys had to compete for that quarterback job, and it came down to the last minute of a decision being made to make Russell Wilson the QB1. But he wasn't ready to go week 1, so Justin Fields, by default, came in, won it week 1 at Atlanta, and had him sitting at 4-2 in the division. So that's just my reason why I think they made the switch, made the change. Other than that, there was no reason to remove a 4-2 quarterback to put another guy in. Now, it's good that you're sitting at 5-2, looking real good to go 6-2. But that's just my logic behind why they made the move from Justin Fields back to Russell Wilson. Because, like I said, Justin Fields had you sitting at 4-2 at the top of the division. But that's my time, man. I'm about to get out of here. Make sure y'all head over to them social media platforms, follow, subscribe on YouTube. If you head over to IG, you want to follow me personally, it's Ralph_Sneaks. It's scrolling down at the bottom of your screen. You can also follow the sports page, Damn_YouTube_sports talk. Click the link in the bio and you can subscribe on YouTube that way. Make sure you hit the notification bell once you subscribe on YouTube so you can get notified when new content releases. Or you can follow me on X at Damn YouTube Sports Talk. That's my time. It's your boy Ralph Sneaks. Until the next episode. Peace.